think about it. How many times a week, maybe even a day, do we find ourselves talking about our jobs? You know, that classic what do you do question comes up constantly.
It really does. It's amazing how much our work is tied to, well, who we are and how we connect with people. The language we use around it is actually pretty fascinating.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today. A listener sent us a great source, the transcript from episode 136 of English Podcast Zone, which focuses specifically on the topic of jobs.
Yeah, and even though it's aimed at English learners, it's packed with insights for anyone about how we naturally discuss professions, the words, the phrases, all that stuff.
Right. So our mission here is to unpack the key vocabulary, those common phrases, the cultural bits around job talk, all using this episode as our guide. Basically giving you a shortcut to getting this language down.
And this source covers a lot. You've got a dialogue of people meeting, explanations of terms like VP or Fortune 500, phrases like going on about someone, plus broader stuff about job types and finding work.
Okay, let's jump right into that first bit, the dialogue where the couples meet.
Right. It's such a relatable scenario, isn't it? Two couples meet unexpectedly, and almost the first thing they do is ask about work.
Totally. And Caroline introduces Greg as VP of Quality and Safety for a top Fortune 500 food company. Quite the mouthful.
It is, and it carries weight. The source does a good job explaining VP, vice president. It signals, a pretty senior role.
And Fortune 500 company. We hear that thrown around. What's a key thing to grasp besides just big company?
Well, it immediately tells you it's one of the 500 biggest companies in the U.S., ranked by Fortune magazine based on revenue. So it implies scale, maybe stability, influence. It sort of frames Greg's role instantly.
Definitely adds a bit of gravitas. Then you have Arthur, who just casually drops I'm a Top Gun pilot.
Huh. Yeah, talk about a contrast in introductions. Greg's is very corporate, structured. Arthur's is more about this specific, maybe even iconic skill set.
It highlights how different jobs carry different kinds of, I guess, cultural weight or associations.
Absolutely. And the podcast host even picked up on a potential sarcastic edge in Greg's tone later on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which just goes to show it's not just what you do, but how you talk about it that matters. That delivery can reveal a lot.
Interesting point. Okay, let's shift over to some of that specific job vocabulary the episode explains. First one is implement. Seems simple, but what's the core idea?
Implement means putting something into action. So it's about taking a plan or a strategy, like the example, implement this sales strategy, and actually making it happen. It's the execution part.
Got it. Moving from idea to reality.
Yeah.
And closely related is policies. How does that fit into the work context?
Policies are essentially the rules and regulations of a company, the formal guidelines. So when Greg talks about implementing policies, he's involved in setting up or enforcing how things are officially done.
Makes sense. Then there's the verb oversee. What does that tell us about someone's job?
Oversee is more than just watching. It's supervising, making sure things are running correctly. It implies responsibility. So overseeing daily operations means you're accountable for how those operations go.
Okay. And Greg mentions having, 1,500 employees under me? That sounds like a lot. What's the takeaway from that phrase?
Yeah, under me in this context clearly means he manages them, supervises them. It points to a hierarchy.
Right. And Erica's response about having two really drives home the scale of Greg's responsibility, doesn't it?
It really does. And the last term here is quality control. We kind of know what it means, but what's the essential definition? It's about checking products, in this case, food, to make sure they meet the required standards, that they're good enough to sell. Especially in food, that's absolutely critical for safety and reputation.
Crucial stuff. Okay, so those are terms about the job itself. Now, let's look at how we talk about jobs conversationally. The episode highlights she's always going on about him at the office. Why is that phrase useful?
It's just a very natural, common way to say someone talks about something or someone repeatedly, maybe even a bit too much. Like, my boss is always going on about saving money. It's more informal than saying frequently discusses.
Yeah, it captures that everyday office vibe.
Exactly.
Then there's the greeting, hey, how's it going? Super common. Any key insight there?
The main point is just how relaxed and casual it is compared to a more formal "how are you?" It's often the default way to start a chat in English. Very low-key.
Got it. And the big one. What do you do for a living? Why focus on this specific phrasing?
Because, as the episode points out, it's generally the most natural, idiomatic way to ask about someone's profession. More so than the slightly stilted, "what is your job?"
Hmm.
It's what you'll likely hear and use most often.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, so we've looked at the intros, the terms, the phrases. The episode then kind of zooms out to talk about why we discuss jobs so much.
And it comes down to connection, really. When you meet someone, asking about work is a major way we try to understand who they are, what their life is like, maybe find some common ground. It's fundamental.
We ask what they do, where they work, if they enjoy it.
Exactly. Those basic questions.
And the source also gives tips on how to describe your own job. It's not just the title, is it?
No, usually you give a little context, like the examples, "I am a teacher, I work at a school," or "I am a doctor, I help sick people." It makes it clearer, more relatable.
What about if you don't currently have a job? What's the standard way to handle that question?
The episode suggests simple, direct phrases like, "I am looking for a job," or "I am a student." Perfectly normal responses.
They also touch on part-time versus full-time work and even talking about future plans like, I want to be a nurse.
Yeah, these are all natural parts of the conversation around careers and professional lives. Sharing aspirations is pretty common, too.
And it keeps coming back to those core questions. What do you do? Hiker, where do you work? And do you like your job?
The foundations of job talk, definitely. They open the door to potentially much deeper conversations.
No, the episode does this really neat thing where it explores the huge variety of jobs out there.
It does. It categorizes them in ways that make sense, like office versus outdoor work, quiet versus busy jobs. And then it dives into sectors:
Mhm.
service, healthcare, education, transport, construction, entertainment, farming, tech.
And for each one, it gives a little snapshot of the work. Like service industry means lots of talking to people, being friendly.
Right. Or healthcare focuses on helping people stay healthy, which is obviously vital. Education needs patience, good explanation skills.
Transportation requires being careful, following rules. Construction is very hands-on, building things. Entertainment is about creating experiences.
Farming is essential for food, often demanding work.
Mm.
And tech is often about innovation, problem solving, constant learning. It's a great overview of how diverse the world of work is.
And I like the concluding thought they shared.
Me too. That each job is special and every job helps society in some way. It's a really positive and important message, looking beyond status to the actual contribution.
Definitely. Okay, shifting gears again. The episode then walks through the whole process of actually finding and getting a job, a journey many of us know well.
Oh, yes. And they start with the why. Why do people look for jobs? Earning money, sure, but also pursuing interests, learning skills, helping the community,
Then the practical steps. First, figuring out what you want to do.
which involves thinking about your skills and interests, right? Like the examples, helping people might lead to nursing or teaching, building things might point towards construction or mechanics. Self-awareness is key.
Then finding the openings. What methods do they cover?
They mentioned online job boards, which are huge now, but also networking, talking to people you know, and even directly visiting businesses for certain types of jobs, like retail.
Once you find something, you apply. Talk about resumes and cover letter.
The resume needs to clearly show your experience, skills, education, contact info. And the cover letter is your chance to really tailor your application, explain why you're interested in that specific role and company.
And then the interview stage, often the most nerve-wracking part. Any key advice there?
Well, besides the obvious, be polite, honest, dress appropriately, be on time, they mentioned preparing for common questions like, why this job? Or what are your strengths?
Okay.
But also, importantly, preparing your own questions to ask them. It shows you're engaged and serious.
Good point. If things go well, you get a job offer and a contract. What's crucial here?
Read that contract carefully. It outlines your duties, hours, salary. Make sure you understand everything before you sign. It's a binding agreement.
Makes sense. And starting the new job, those first days and weeks.
The advice is pretty solid. Listen well, follow instructions, try to connect with your new colleagues. It's normal to be nervous, but focus on being punctual, working hard, and being kind.
What about when you don't get the job?
Oh.
Rejection is part of the process.
Yeah, they acknowledge that disappointment is normal. But the key is to try and learn from it. Maybe ask for feedback if possible, and just keep going. Persistence matters.
And finally, they touch on changing jobs, which is so common these days.
Right. People move for better pay, new challenges, better work conditions. The advice is to plan it thoughtfully, update your resume, practice interviewing, look for opportunities strategically.
Okay, so that covers finding a job. The last big area they explore is succeeding and growing in a job.
Yeah, it's not just about landing the role, but thriving once you're there. Success is defined as doing your job well, improving your skills, and building good relationships.
What are the key elements they highlight for achieving that?
Things like being careful and timely with your work, communicating clearly, both speaking and writing, being reliable, showing up on time, finishing tasks, keeping promises.
A positive attitude seems important too.
Definitely. Trying to find solutions, being easy to work with. And a big one is continuously learning new skills.
That seems critical today. How do they suggest doing that?
By asking your manager for opportunities, taking classes, or even teaching yourself new things, like software or customer service techniques. Staying current is vital.
And what about relationships with colleagues and managers?
Super important. Being kind, respectful, listening to others' ideas, offering help, respecting your managers, working well in a team. It all contributes to a better work environment and your own success.
Receiving feedback is another point they make.
Yeah, being open to it, even if it's critical, and using it to improve. Asking for clarification if you need it. It shows you're willing to grow.
They also touch on promotions.
Right. Showing you're capable, willing to learn more, and expressing interest in advancement can lead to promotions.
And that ever elusive work-life balance.
Crucial for avoiding burnout and staying effective long term. Managing your job alongside your personal life, getting rest, spending time with family and friends.
And again, sometimes changing jobs is part of that growth process.
Exactly. The main takeaway is that these habits, diligence, communication, reliability, learning, good relationships, they help you succeed no matter what career path you're on.
Finally, there's that English Pod audio review section. What's its purpose?
It seems to be just a quick recap of some of that key vocabulary we discussed earlier, like go on about Fortune 500, implement, oversee, under me, quality control. Just reinforces those terms.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, our dive into that English podcast zone episode has given us a really solid look at how we talk about jobs, hasn't it? From the first questions to finding work to growing in a career.
It really has. And it's interesting how a resource for language learners provides such a clear lens on this universal experience of work and how we communicate about it. Hopefully this breakdown gives you a more structured way to think about it all.
So, thinking about everything we've unpacked today, maybe consider, is there one way you talk about your own work or think about your career that might shift a little now?
Or maybe, what's a new area related to your career, or even a completely different field that you feel kind of inspired to look into more deeply after this? Some of it to ponder.
It's all about applying these ideas to your own situation. Thanks so much for sharing this source with us, and thanks to you for joining our deep dive today.
Yeah, it was a great discussion. Looking forward to the next one.